This mod for Warhammer 3 turns you into the Great Khan himself. You will lead your Mongol horde and invade Grand Cathay and eventually become the Emperor of Grand Cathay. The Hung Lords of the Steppes. We're looking at the infantry, cavalry, and artillery for this faction. We're starting off with the infantry section, and this faction is not going to be known for its infantry, so it's kind of like Bretonia, but the evil side. They don't really have a standard strong infantry, but they do have some interesting units. So we have the captives here. This is like their throwaway slave type low tier unit that they're just going to use as fodder, so they're really cheap. We're now moving into the standard Hung Mongolian style units here. We have the Hung Nomads. They're a sword and shield infantry, obviously. And overall, I gotta say, they do have a really strong look to them. I think every unit in this faction is very themized and it looks really well. And these are still just a really basic lower tier infantry. On low tier units, I never expect to see a weapon I really love. But these Hung Pillagers, they're great weapons. I do like the axe, but the more mace style long cudgel, like a long mace weapon here, I like it a lot. I think it looks really good, and I haven't seen very many mods that pull off a weapon just like that. So, like the Hung Nomads we've seen earlier, this is the Naftun, which is a Regiment of Renown version. As you can see, there are slight cosmetic differences here, and they do have a ranged bomb throw style attack, as you can see in their right hand, and they still also use their sword. So, yeah, there's a little bit of combo there. And now going toward a more anti-infantry offensive focus, we have the Hung Pillagers with dual weapons. So now they have dual swords, and these guys are going to get in the lines and pretty much wreak havoc against enemy infantry. So altogether, I think all of these units, they look very good together, and as a standard army, they would look good as a group. Now we have an interesting infantry unit. We have the Dog Handlers. They're a whip infantry, and on top of that, pretty much they're going to, each of these is going to summon a hunting dog. So they're going to get a monster unit summoned for each one of these on the field. So it's kind of a way to bring two units in one, so I think that adds a lot of value to them. Another really interesting unit, we have the Hung Spawn Eaters. A lot of larger units can usually outrun your infantry, so if you're trying to catch them, you can't. This one's interesting because it actually has nets that will lock the unit down to where they can't move, so you could actually catch them to do the damage against a large unit. I'm a really big fan of that, and there's also a Regiment of Renown version, which has regeneration, so it also regenerates health as it's in combat, which I thought was really, really cool, and it still can trap down the larger units, so you can get in there and really go against those larger monster units or any larger unit and deal some damage.
Take it all, including their lives!
So they're not known for their main infantry, but on the missile infantry side, they probably do a little bit better than their infantry, just melee component. We have these Hung Scouts, are a really basic infantry unit here, so really not much to talk about, and just overall, they're just going to fill in as your basic bowman. These step trackers here are the close quarters infantry, but they're also going to be throwing axes. So they're kind of a hybridish infantry unit, if you could say. Their stats are medium low. They're not like crazy, but they're still an interesting alternative compared to a regular bowman. This mod has something I think that every faction that has range units should have, because there's lots of ammo types, lots of different arrow types out there that exist, and it makes no sense not to have this with your units. So this is a dismounted heavy archers, and a lot of these units are dismounted, meaning that they're usually the cavalry version and they're just on foot. And you do have access to different arrow types, not just regular arrows. In this mod, there's fire arrows, whistling arrows, poison arrows, there's some heavy arrows. And so, like, there's different options out there for these units. I really, really like that because it adds some different playability of how you want to build out your bowmen. This is the dismounted horse masters. As you see variable arrows, they actually has access to all the arrow types. So they're a unit that gets access to everything. Then you have the Ungol's hunters. These are dismounted heavy archers with a little bit different look. And as you can tell, they're actually going to be doing poison damage. So these guys will be using poison arrows and actually doing poison damage over time to the enemy. So just a lot of variety here. I think a lot of ranged factions don't have that variety, or it's very little. So I like that this mod adds a lot. For anyone wondering, the combat shown up here in a second is going to be more the melee based. It would be very challenging to show all the ranged options for every single unit here because there's just so much. And a lot of these are very solid melee units as well as ranged units. So you are going to see the melee combat. In the beginning of the video, that's actually them just firing a bunch of ranged arrows. Now we have the last unit we looked at, the Cavalry. These are the Night Guard Regiment Renown version. They're a greatsword and bow infantry unit. As you can tell, they have a little bit more different look to them, but they are very similar. Just altogether, just think of them as a way stronger unit, dealing way better poison damage. These are like the epitome of what you're going to be able to get for a ranged unit in this mod. Next up, we have the Steel Spitters. These are a close quarters missile infantry. Pretty much they're going to be using these shotguns, these blunderbusses, to deal a lot of damage. They're exactly what you expect. These are pretty much just stolen from Grand Cathay and brought over to the Hungs. And again, there's nothing to hate here. It's just another option for you. I don't really know in the campaign if you can get them in mass numbers or it's more of a limited thing. And then you also have the Sea Dragon Hunters, which is the handbow infantry. As you can see here, they take some stuff from the Dark Elves, and it is an interesting look to kind of see the Dark Elf helmets on some of these guys with the bows and the sword. I do like the swords a lot. We're now at the Cavalry section. These are the Light Lancers, Shock Cavalry, and this faction is going to be the Cavalry faction. They're going to have better melee and ranged cavalry options that are really going to be how you want to play them. I would not recommend playing this faction with just infantry or just bowmen on foot. I would recommend playing them as cavalry focused. Now we have the Hung Raiders. We're going up in tier just a tiny bit, and we're getting a little bit better stats. As you can see, these guys are a sword unit, so they're a little bit better in the melee instead of just the charge side. But overall, I'm a big fan of pretty much every cavalry unit in this mod. This is a unit here that I think needs to stand out a little bit more from the other ones, considering it's a regiment of renown, but it's the Blood Rage Riders of the Hung Raiders, which is a tongue twister right there. But overall, I'm a big fan of this unit. I do like their look, and they do pretty good in combat. So far, the first three, these are the best one we've seen. Who needs armor? We have the Hung Ambushers. Obviously, you can see here, they're wearing pretty much just nothing. They've got some stuff, they've got some gauntlets, they got some stuff on their feet, but their chest is just wide open. These guys are dedicated to the attack. Their melee attack's 40, while their melee defense is 12. So throw these guys in where you want to do some awesome damage, and they're good at flanking. Unlike the last unit, this unit here, we're up in the armor across the board. These are the heavy lancers. You can see their shock cavalry. Their horses are armored. They're armored. They've got a nice spear for some range. They have a good melee attack, good defense, and they have a pretty solid charge bonus. And they have a lance formation, so they're going to charge in good. Personally, this is one of my favorite units in the mod and the Regiment of Renown version coming up. The Torgud, or Torgud, I probably pronounced that wrong, but they have the flying wedge formation ability, and I just really like their look. I love the dual swords, I love the heavy armor, I just think they look really great in combat, and I had a fun time watching them fight. Next up, we have the Regiment of Renown version, which is the Day Guard. So they're a more golden version, and I've got to say, going from that darker metal black look to this golden look, it's just a great transition, and I feel like I would use this unit even more than the last one if I could get them in mass, so I really do like this. We've got some Khan's Guard here. They're a shock cavalry style unit, and I've got to say, I really like their spears. Some of them are like regular pointed spears, while other ones are almost like a sword end or a glaive style end. I like that. Plus, it just very, very themized look to them. You can just tell they're going to be really good at charging. They have an 80 charge bonus. But they still have good melee attack, melee defense. I'm less of a fan of this unit, but again, it is kind of cool, but I'm just not a huge fan of it. It's the Sky Hunters. They're the Hung Ambushers. They're Regiment Renown version. And instead of being on horses, they pop them up on some monsters, and they're still dedicated to pretty much getting in there and doing some good damage. The only difference is now they have higher melee defense, and their weapon strength is a lot higher because they're on monsters. Out of the cavalry, this is my top two, so it's either the gold one or this one, the Khan's Shield, the Khan's Guard, but these guys have, it's funny, they're Khan's Shield, but they have these massive swords. I really like the red glowing effect kind of sparking off their weapon, and I think they look really good in combat, and they have great stats. So we've covered the melee side. Now we're going into the hung, range cavalry side. And the only caveat on this is a lot of these units have the circle and shoot, which you've seen at the beginning of the video where they're all circling and firing, and I will show some of that again. My only issue with that is for some reason, every mod that implements this, it doesn't look very good. So you can't move the units once you put them in that, and it takes a minute when they get into that. For some reason, I feel like when the units are in that, their fire rate drops. I don't know. Every mod that I've seen try to implement this, I feel like it comes off very half and half. I've never really been a fan of it. It looks cool, but I feel like it hurts the damage, and it just doesn't work the way it's intended. So maybe the modders can go back and figure out a better way to run this. Okay, so back to the actual main units here. As you can see, the starting unit, and then we have these heavy archers. Both of these units have a lot of different arrow options, sort of like we've seen with the ground versions. So the same arrow options are here, so you can have some customization. And also, if you've seen the naming on some of these are just the mounted version, like the Hung Horse Masters, variable arrows. These are the actual mounted versions, not the ones on foot. So you get the speed, you get the advantage of being on a horse, but they're still going to be doing all that good range damage and still have the mobility. So now we have the Hung Scourge Runners. These are a missile chariot. And honestly, for some reason, I've always liked the idea of chariots, and I've always liked chariot units, but I just like this one less. You know, like it does okay. They're armor-piercing missiles, and they're harder-hitting ranged attack. So I guess you could find a really good use for them. I just wasn't a huge fan. And now we have the Mounted Shamans of Char, which I think these are actually really interesting. So these give a constant ranged magic attack that hits, and when magic's used near them, they actually increase their range. I thought that was interesting. And their Regiment Renown version actually has some spells they can throw down on top of that for free. So free cost spells And then it has a stronger magic range attack that it throws off, you know, normally without any cost. So I think these are really cool, interesting units, and they add a lot of flair to this faction. The more magic artillery cavalry side is something I think is really interesting in this mod. And now we're at our last section, the really tiny artillery section, but again, these are still going to be really good options for your armies. So you have the Hung Reaper bolt throwers, obviously stolen from another faction, and that's pretty much the trend all through here. These are all stolen from other factions, pretty much, you know, ideas. But if you need an artillery piece, there you go, you have one. Then right here, you can tell from Grand Cathay, the Thunder Spinner, they're a rocket battery unit. Again, you're just taking this from Grand Cathay and moving it over, which they are close enough that it kind of makes sense to me. And if you need an artillery piece, this would be the one I would go for out of all of these, this one every time. And to me, it just performed the best. And then we have the Wall Ripper Siege Artillery. So you kind of have, to me, 3 different artillery types, and it gives you enough variety that you can run it how you want to run it. We do have some combat coming up showing these, and that will happen here in a second, and that'll be the final end of the video. So before that, I just want to say thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will catch you in the next mod spotlight. Please, down below, leave names of mods you want me to check out.